The October rain comes down sideways over the Blue Ridge Mountains. It hammers the slate roof of a small stone building tucked behind a row of dark maple trees. Inside, in an upstairs window, a single yellow light burns. A young woman kneels on a dusty floor. Her hand presses flat against an old wooden plank. She taps it. Once. Twice. The wood answers her with a sound that is not solid. A sound that is hollow. Outside, headlights swing across the boarded glass. A silver Lexus pulls slowly down the gravel drive. The engine cuts. A door opens. Polished shoes step out onto wet stone. In the upstairs window, the young woman holds her breath. 3 knocks on the door below. Hard. Deliberate. The knock of a man who already knows what is buried under that floor. And what he came to do about it. She rises to her feet. She does not turn on another light. The rain in Asheville never knew when to stop. It came down sideways that morning. Cold. Mean. The kind of rain that finds the gap between your collar and your neck and settles there like a stranger's hand. Harper Whitfield stood under the awning of the Cedar Hill Group Home for Girls holding a cardboard box. 18 years old. 1 suitcase, $200 in a manila envelope, and a photograph she'd looked at every night for 3 years. The photograph showed a man holding a little girl on his shoulders, both of them laughing. The man was her father. The little girl was her before everything broke. "Harper, honey." Miss Patterson stood in the doorway. Her gray cardigan was buttoned wrong. Her eyes were tired the way social workers' eyes are always tired. Not from one day. From years. "Your bus leaves at 10. "I know." "You got the shelter address." "I got it." "And the meal voucher." "Got it." Miss Patterson held out one more envelope, cream-colored, heavy. The kind of paper Harper hadn't touched since she was a child in her father's office, sliding her small fingers across his letterhead while he worked. This came yesterday. Harper took it. The envelope had her name typed in real ink, not printed. Typed, like someone had sat at an actual typewriter and pressed each letter on purpose. Harper Whitfield, care of Cedar Hill Group Home, Asheville, North Carolina. The return address read, Cole and Associates, Cedar Falls, North Carolina. Cedar Falls. Harper's mouth went dry. She hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 3 years. Not once. Not by anyone. She'd trained herself not to even think it. Because thinking it brought everything back. The white farmhouse with the wraparound porch. The tomato garden. The smell of her father's flannel shirts. The morning her brothers came to the hospital and told her daddy was gone. "Open it later," Ms. Patterson said, "when you're settled." "Sure." "Harper." "Yeah. You're gonna be all right." Harper nodded. Because what else do you do when a woman who has watched 200 girls leave through that door tells you you're going to be all right? You nod. You pick up your box. You walk into the rain. The Greyhound depot in Asheville smelled like wet wool and diesel and someone's microwave breakfast burrito. Harper found a bench by the window. She set the box between her boots. She held the manila envelope on her lap like it might fly away. $200. That's what 18 years of being a person was worth, apparently. $200 and a bus ticket to a homeless shelter in Knoxville. The Knoxville shelter, That was the plan. That was Ms. Patterson's plan. They'd give her a bed for a week, help her look for work, connect her with what they called transitional services, which was a fancy way of saying we have run out of money to care about you, good luck. Harper had not told Miss Patterson she would not be going to Knoxville. She hadn't decided yet, not officially, but her hands kept finding the cream-colored envelope, and her thumb kept pressing the seal, and the typewriter ink kept staring up at her like a question she hadn't answered. Cedar Falls. She slid her finger under the flap. The paper inside was thicker than any paper had a right to be. 3 pages, folded twice, smelling faintly of pipe tobacco, which made no sense except it did, because her father had smoked a pipe on the back porch every Sunday of her life until he got sick. She read, "Dear Ms. Whitfield, this office represents the estate of your late father, James Whitfield. While the primary assets of the estate were distributed pursuant to probate proceedings, 3 years ago, a codicil to his last will and testament was structured to take effect upon your 18th birthday, that date being today." Harper's heart began to do a thing she didn't recognize, a kicking, like something inside her chest had woken up and didn't know where it was. She kept reading. "The codicil bequeaths to you, sole beneficiary, one piece of real property listed in county records as Parcel 7B, the detached stone carriage house and adjoining 1/10 acre, located at the northeast corner of the original Whitfield homestead. Address 412 Hollow Creek Lane, Cedar Falls, North Carolina." She stopped breathing. The carriage house. The carriage house. That mossy old stone building behind the maple trees. The one her father used for storing the tractor and his fishing tackle and that ridiculous canoe he never paddled because Mama said it leaked. The one with the apartment upstairs that nobody had lived in since Grandpa Whitfield died in 1979. Her brothers had gotten the house, the farm, the construction company, the bank accounts, the cars, the land. And she had gotten the shed. A laugh climbed up Harper's throat, not a real laugh. A sharp little sound like a bird hitting a window. Of course, the cosmic punchline of her life would be a shed. She kept reading because what else could she do? "The property is conveyed as is with all associated obligations, including property taxes which are currently in arrears in the amount of $842. The county has issued a final notice. Failure to remit payment within 90 days will result in seizure and public auction. $842. Harper looked at the $200 in her lap. She laughed again, louder. The man on the bench across from her looked up from his phone. $842 she did not have. To pay taxes on a building she did not want. Built on a property she could not visit. Owned by a family that had thrown her away. Perfect. Perfectly, beautifully, cosmically perfect. Except there was one more paragraph. "The trust contains no liquid assets at this time. You will, however, find a key to the property in a magnetic lockbox secured to the rear of the electrical meter. Your father was specific about the location. He said you would understand. He said you would understand." Harper put the letter down on her knees. Her father had been dying when he wrote this. He had been a man who couldn't remember her name in the last weeks. Who'd called her by her mother's name? who'd held her hand and cried for a woman who had been dead for 9 years. And in the middle of all that, somewhere in the cracks of his disappearing mind, he had hidden a key behind an electrical meter for a daughter he knew would be 18 years old someday. He said you would understand. Harper did not understand, but she wanted to. God, she wanted to. She got up. She walked to the ticket counter. The woman behind the glass had hair the color of dishwater and a name tag that said Beverly. "Ma'am, I need to change my ticket." "Where to?" "Cedar Falls." Beverly typed slowly, like the keyboard might bite. "Cedar Falls. That's a flag stop. Bus comes through at 11:40. You got an extra $15? Harper counted bills out of her envelope. The sound of paper money felt very loud in the empty depot. "Honey, you sure?" Beverly's eyes had gone gentle behind her smudged glasses. "Cedar Falls is real small, real far out." "I'm sure. You got family there?" Harper paused. "I had family there," she said. Beverly didn't push. She just slid the new ticket through the slot. "Bus leaves from Bay 4. Bless your heart." Harper had spent enough time in the South to know that "bless your heart" was a phrase that could mean anything from "I love you" to "you poor thing" to "I think you've lost your mind." This time she was pretty sure it meant all three. She found a payphone next to the vending machines. Her flip phone was almost dead, and she needed the minutes. The payphone smelled like an ashtray, and the receiver was sticky in a way she chose not to investigate. She dialed the number on the letterhead. It rang twice. "Cole and Associates. This is Robert Cole." Harper opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "Hello. My name is Harper Whitfield." A pause. A long one. And then, very softly, "Harper, I have been waiting to hear your voice." Something inside her cracked. She didn't know what. It hadn't been a big thing. It had just been a sentence. "I have been waiting to hear your voice." When was the last time anyone had told her they'd been waiting to hear her voice? "The letter," she managed. "I got the letter." "I assumed you had." "I don't understand." "I know. It's a shed." "It is. And I owe $800. "You do. And I have 200. "I see. This is a joke." "It is not." Harper pressed her forehead against the cool metal of the payphone shell. The receiver shook a little in her hand. "Mr. Cole, with respect, why would my father leave me a shed? That is the question, isn't it? I'm asking you." "I cannot answer it, Harper." "Why not?" "Because he did not tell me." She wanted to scream. "Then what did he tell you?" There was a sound on the line, like a man taking a long breath and deciding what kind of lawyer he was going to be in the next 10 seconds. "He told me," Robert Cole said, "that you always knew how to find things." The line went quiet. The bus depot smelled like diesel. Beverly was watching her from the ticket counter. "That's it," Harper whispered. "He told me the key is behind the electrical meter. And the rest is up to you." She wanted to laugh again, but she didn't have it in her anymore. Her mouth was dry and her eyes hurt, and the rain was coming down harder outside the window. "Mr. Cole, Yes, Harper. Did my father love me? She had not meant to ask it. The words just walked out of her mouth and stood there between them on the phone line. Naked. Stupid. 18 years old. Robert Cole was quiet for a long time. When he answered, his voice was different. Harper, your father loved you more than any man I ever knew loved any human being on this earth. And I have been a divorce lawyer for 40 years. She was crying now, quietly, the way you cry in public when you've learned how to make it not look like crying. I'll come to your office, she said. When I get there. I'll be waiting. She hung up. She picked up her box. She walked to Bay 4. The bus pulled out of Asheville at 11:47. The rain didn't quit. Harper sat by a window and watched North Carolina slide by like a slideshow she hadn't asked to see. Strip malls, a pawn shop, a church marquee that said, God knows where you are, which she found neither comforting nor accurate. Then the city ended, just like that. 1 minute strip malls, next minute pine trees, next minute mountains. The Blue Ridge, her mountains. Harper hadn't seen them in 3 years, and the sight of them did something to her ribs, like a door opening in a room she'd locked. She had been born in those mountains. Her mother had given birth to her in the small county hospital in Cedar Falls because Harper had come 3 weeks early, and her parents hadn't made it to Asheville in time. Her father had told her the story 100 times. You came in a hurry, Sparkplug. You've been in a hurry ever since. Sparkplug. Nobody had called her that in 3 years. She pressed her forehead to the window. The glass was cold. She let it be cold. She let the cold be the only real thing in the world for a minute. Mind if I sit? Harper looked up. An older woman stood in the aisle. Maybe 70, maybe a little more. Silver hair pinned up in a way that took effort. A clean cotton dress. A tan handbag that had been good leather once and was still proud about it. Her face had the kind of lines that come from laughing in the sun. And underneath that, something else. Something quieter. Like a long sadness had moved in and made itself at home. Sure, the woman sat. She set her purse on her lap. She looked at the rain. Long ride, she said. Yeah. You from Asheville? No. Where you headed? Cedar Falls. The woman went very still. It was the kind of stillness Harper recognized. Not the stillness of a stranger making polite conversation. The stillness of a person who has just heard a name they did not expect to hear. Cedar Falls, the woman repeated. Yes, ma'am. The woman turned. She looked at Harper, really looked. At her face, her hair, her eyes. Something passed across her expression that Harper could not name. What's your name, child? Harper. The woman waited. Harper Whitfield. The woman closed her eyes. She didn't gasp. She didn't say anything. She just closed her eyes and her mouth went very tight, and her hands gripped the handbag in her lap until her knuckles went white. When she opened her eyes, they were wet. I knew your daddy, she said. Harper's chest did the kicking thing again. How? He was my neighbor for 38 years. Harper stared. What's your name, ma'am? Eleanor Hartley. Eleanor Hartley. Harper remembered the name, vaguely, from childhood. A woman who brought zucchini bread to the house at Christmas. A husband who fixed her father's tractor once when nobody else in town would touch the thing. "You're Mrs. Hartley." "I am." "My daddy used to talk about your husband." "Did he?" "He said Mr. Hartley was the only man in Cedar Falls who knew how to weld." Eleanor Hartley made a sound. Half laugh, half something else. "Your daddy was a kind man," she said. "Yes, ma'am. He was the kindest man I ever knew." Harper opened her mouth. She didn't know what she was going to say. "He died. He's gone. My brothers threw me away. I've been in a group home for 3 years. I'm coming home to a shed." But Eleanor Hartley reached over and took Harper's hand. The hand was thin. The skin was soft and dry and very warm. "You come home, sweetheart." Harper's throat closed. "You come home and you let an old woman feed you a hot meal. You hear me?" Harper nodded. She couldn't speak. She just held that old woman's hand and watched the Blue Ridge Mountains rise up around them like the walls of a room she didn't know she had been missing. The bus dropped Harper at the Cedar Falls flag stop just past 2 in the afternoon. The flag stop was a gravel turnout next to a Sunoco station and a hand-painted sign that read, "Cedar Falls Pop 1847. The rain had stopped. The air smelled like wet pine and wood smoke and something Harper had forgotten the name of. Home. That was the name of it. Home smelled like wet pine and wood smoke. Eleanor Hartley pressed a slip of paper into Harper's hand before she got off the bus. "My number? You call me, you hear?" "Yes, ma'am." "Don't you dare not call me Harper Whitfield." "I won't, ma'am." "And child?" "Yes." Eleanor's eyes had that quiet sadness again, the kind that doesn't ask for anything, just sits there. "You watch yourself out there." Harper started to ask what she meant, but the bus driver was calling and Eleanor was gathering her handbag, and the moments slid past like a leaf in a stream. Harper stepped down onto the gravel. The bus pulled away. She stood there alone. Cedar Falls had not changed. That was the first thing. The thing that made her dizzy. The Sunoco still had the same wooden bench out front where men used to drink coffee at 6 in the morning. The post office across the street still flew the same crooked flag. The hardware store on the corner still had Jenkins Hardware painted on the brick in faded gold lettering. Jenkins Hardware. She had not thought about Earl Jenkins in 3 years. She picked up her box. She started walking. Hollow Creek Lane was 2 miles outside town. She knew the way. Her feet knew the way. 3 years in a group home had not erased the memory of how to walk home. She passed the elementary school where she had learned to read. She passed the little white church where her mother was buried in the cemetery out back. She passed the bridge over Hollow Creek where her daddy had taught her how to skip stones, and she had been so bad at it that he had laughed until he had to sit down on the bank. "Spark plug you throw like a chicken." "I am not a chicken, Daddy. You are a chicken. You are my chicken. I am your spark plug. You are my spark plug chicken." Harper had to stop walking for a second. She had to put down the box and put her hands on her knees, because something was happening in her chest that she did not have a name for. She kept walking. She turned onto Hollow Creek Lane, and there it was, the white farmhouse, her house. Except not her house. Not anymore. It had been painted. The shutters were glossy black now, not the dark green her mother had picked out. The porch had been screened in. There was a circular driveway where the gravel turnaround used to be. 2 cars sat in it. A black BMW, a silver Lexus. Her father's pickup truck was gone. There was no garden. Her mother's roses were gone. The yellow ones she had planted by the front steps the year before she died. Gone. Ripped out. Replaced by some kind of shrub Harper didn't know the name of. A sound came out of Harper that she did not authorize. A small, animal sound. She pressed her hand over her mouth and kept walking, past the house, down the gravel drive, around the side, past the magnolia, past the spot where the chicken coop used to be, down the slope, through the maple trees, and there, the carriage house. It stood in a pocket of weeds and ivy at the back corner of the property. Stone. 2 stories. Slate roof sagging in the middle. The big sliding doors on the ground floor where the tractor used to live. The little side door with the iron hinges. The 2 boarded-up windows on the second floor. It looked like a building someone had forgotten to remember, which Harper realized was about right. She walked around to the back. The electrical meter was where it had always been, bolted to the stone. Behind it in the dirt, in a small black magnetic lockbox. A key. Old. Brass. Heavy. Harper held it in her palm. It was warm. The sun had been on the stone all morning and the metal had soaked the warmth in. It felt like someone had just been holding it. She walked to the side door. She put the key in the lock. And then she heard the voice. "What the hell are you doing here?" Harper froze. She did not turn around. She knew the voice. 3 years had not changed it. 3 years had not changed anything. "Garrett," she said. Slowly she turned. Her oldest brother stood at the edge of the maple trees. 41 years old now. Taller than she remembered. Heavier. He was wearing one of those quarter-zip pullovers golf men wear. His hair had thinned, and he had compensated by growing the beard that used to embarrass their father. A black Labrador sat at his heel with a red leather collar. He was staring at her like he was looking at a ghost, which, in some way, he was. "Harper. Hi. What the hell are you doing here?" "I'm using my key." His face did a complicated thing. Several things at once. Surprise, confusion, calculation. And underneath all of it, something that looked very much like fear. She had not expected fear. "Your key to what?" "To my carriage house." He laughed. It was an ugly laugh. Sharp. The kind of laugh a man uses when he is buying himself time. "Harper, sweetheart, this is private property." "I know. You can't be here. I have the deed." His face changed again. This time she saw it land. Whatever it was, the thing he was afraid of, it just walked across his face and sat down behind his eyes. "You have the what?" "The deed. Dad left me the carriage house. The lawyer sent me a letter." I have 90 days to pay the taxes. That's not possible. It is. That's Harper. That's not. He pulled his phone out of his pocket. His hand was shaking. She had never in her entire life seen Garrett's hand shake. He turned away from her. He walked 5 steps toward the magnolia. He started talking into the phone. Holden, pick up. Pick up the goddamn phone. Holden. She's here. She's at the carriage house. She has a key. She says she has a deed. Harper turned back to the door. She turned the key. The lock resisted. It was older than she was. It had been sitting in the rain and the heat and the cold of 38 winters, and it did not want to open for anybody. She put her shoulder into it. The bolt slid back with a sound like a small bone snapping. The door opened. The smell came out first. Damp. Dust. Old wood. Something organic and slightly sweet that might have been a dead mouse, or might have been the residue of 100 years of horses that had stood there before her grandfather had bought the place in 1952. Harper stepped inside. She pulled the door shut behind her. She heard Garrett yelling into his phone outside. She did not care. She was home. The ground floor was a wreck. Rusted gardening tools leaned against the stone walls like old men at a bar. Cracked terracotta pots in stacks. A push mower that had not pushed anything since the Reagan administration. Cobwebs hung from the rafters in sheets so thick they moved when she breathed. In the corner, a wooden staircase climbed up to the 2nd floor. Harper climbed it. Each step groaned. The railing was rough with splinters, and she let her fingers trail along it anyway because some part of her wanted to feel something physical and uncomplicated. And a splinter was both. The apartment at the top was one large room and a tiny bathroom. There was a sofa under a tarp. A wobbly kitchen table, one wooden chair, a rusted metal bed frame with no mattress, a small wood-burning stove in the corner with a black pipe running up through the ceiling, 2 windows, both grimy, one boarded over from the inside. A dead bird lay on the windowsill. Harper looked at the dead bird for a long time. She did not know why. Maybe because the dead bird made it real, made the years real, made the fact that this place had been sitting here empty, dying small deaths, while she had been sitting in a group home in Asheville, also dying small deaths. Maybe because the dead bird looked like she felt. She set her box on the floor. The sound echoed. She walked to the window. She looked out through the dirty glass. She could see the back of the big white farmhouse from here. The screen porch. The new patio furniture. The hot tub. A hot tub. Her brothers had put a hot tub on the porch where her mother used to read her bedtime stories on summer nights. Harper sat down on the dusty floor. She did not cry. She had used up her crying on the bus. She had used up her crying when she saw the magnolia. She had used up everything. She just sat. She sat for a long time. The afternoon slid sideways into evening. The light through the dirty window went from white to gold to gray. Somewhere outside, a screen door slammed, and a man's voice yelled something. Maybe Garrett. Maybe Holden. Maybe both. She did not move. She heard a car start in the driveway. She heard it pull out. She heard it come back. She heard voices on the porch of the big house, raised, then lowered, then raised again. The sun went down behind the Blue Ridge. The room got cold. Harper unrolled the contents of her cardboard box. 3 changes of clothes. 4 paperback books, spines broken. A toothbrush. A bar of soap. The photograph of her father. She propped the photograph against the leg of the wobbly table. "I'm here, Daddy," she whispered. The photograph did not answer. She lay down on the floor with her jacket bunched up under her head. The floorboards were hard. They smelled like 100 years. She closed her eyes. She did not expect to sleep. She slept. And she dreamed. She dreamed she was 9 years old. She was standing in a tomato garden. The sun was high, and the tomatoes were red, and her father was kneeling next to her in his old flannel shirt, his hands black with garden dirt. "Sparkplug," he said. "Sparkplug, listen to me. I'm listening, Daddy. Things ain't always where you think they are." "What things?" "The things that matter." He picked up a tomato. He turned it in his rough hands. He smiled at her the way he always smiled at her, like she was a piece of weather he was particularly fond of. "Sometimes the most important thing is under your feet." "Under my feet." "Under your feet, baby girl." He pointed at the ground. She looked down. The dirt was just dirt. But when she looked back up, her father was not in the tomato garden anymore. He was in the carriage house. He was standing in the upstairs room, her room. He was wearing the flannel shirt and his hands were still dirty. He pointed at the floor, right next to the sofa. "Under your feet, Sparkplug." Harper woke up. It was the middle of the night. The room was black. The window was a square of pale moonlight on the floor. Her heart was pounding hard enough that she could hear it in her ears. She sat up. She looked at the spot by the sofa where her father had pointed. It was just floor, but she could not stop looking at it. Then, outside, a car. Tires on gravel. Headlights swept across the boarded-up window in a thin yellow stripe. Harper got to her feet. A door slammed. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming around the side of the house. She held her breath. A fist on the door downstairs. 3 knocks. Hard. "Harper." The voice. She did not move. "Harper, I know you're in there." Holden. Her middle brother. 38. Lawyer. Accountant. The one who had always been smarter than Garrett. The one her father had warned her about in the only sentence on the subject he had ever spoken to her the year before he got sick. "Sparkplug, your brother Holden has a calculator where his heart should be." She had laughed when he said it. She was not laughing now. "Harper, open the door." She walked down the stairs slowly. Each step a small, loud creak. She unlocked the bolt. She opened the door. Holden stood on the threshold. He looked older than she remembered. The same neat haircut. The same expensive coat. The same blue eyes that never settled on you for more than half a second before looking past you at something more important. He was holding a piece of paper. He was smiling. The smile did not reach his face. Sister, Holden, may I come in? No. The smile flickered. Harper, what do you want, Holden? To talk. Talk. He held up the piece of paper. This is a cashier's check. $10,000 made out to you. She looked at it. She did not take it. For what? For signing a quitclaim deed. Tonight. I have the paperwork in my car. Why? Why what? Why $10,000 for a shed? He laughed. The same laugh as Garrett. The family laugh. The Whitfield laugh that meant I am buying time, and I do not respect the person I am talking to. Harper, you are 18 years old. You have what? $200. A bus ticket? You have nowhere to go. This building is condemned. It will be auctioned in 90 days. I'm offering you a way out. Out of what? Out of a life of waiting tables and sleeping in shelters. Take the money. Sign the deed. Go to community college. Build a life. She looked at him for a long time. He had aged. He had moved up in the world. He had a haircut that cost more than she had. He had a watch on his wrist that she suspected cost more than $10,000. He could afford to give her $10,000 to walk away. Which meant the carriage house was worth more than $10,000, a lot more. Or there was something in it that her brothers wanted very badly. Harper looked at her brother's smiling face. She looked at the cashier's check. She looked past him at the dark gravel and the silver Lexus parked behind it. She thought about the dream. Things ain't always where you think they are, spark plug. No, she said. His face changed. She had not expected how fast it would change. The smile evaporated. The cordial older brother mask just slid off his face like wet paint. And what was underneath was a man she did not know. A man who looked at her not like a sister, not like a person, like a problem. Harper, don't be stupid. I said no. 20,000. No. 50. Holden. No. He stared at her. His jaw worked. She watched her brother make a calculation. She watched him decide. He took a step back. He folded the check into his coat pocket. He smiled again. A different smile. A smile she did not like at all. Suit yourself, he said. He turned. He walked back to the silver Lexus. He did not say goodbye. The Lexus pulled out of the gravel drive and disappeared down Hollow Creek Lane. Harper stood in the doorway and watched the taillights until they were gone. Then she shut the door. She locked the bolt. She climbed the stairs. She sat down on the dusty floor next to the sofa, in the square of moonlight on the exact spot her father had pointed to in the dream. She put her ear against the floorboard. She tapped. Solid. She moved an inch. Solid. She moved another inch. And then she tapped. A sound came back at her. A sound that was not solid. A sound that was hollow. Harper sat back on her heels. Her heart was doing the kicking thing again. The light came on outside. Wait, no. The light went out. The porch light of the big white farmhouse 200 feet across the maple trees. The light that had been a small white pinprick through her dirty window all night went out. And then the street light at the end of Hollow Creek Lane went out. And then the small green LED of the electrical meter outside her own door, the one she could just see through the boarded window crack, went out. The whole property went black. The fuse to the carriage house had been cut. Somebody had walked up to the box on the side of the building and pulled the master switch. In the dark, Harper sat on her knees in the moonlight, next to the hollow spot on the floor. She could hear her own breath. She could hear her own heart. She could hear very faintly the sound of a car door closing somewhere behind the big white farmhouse. She did not move. She did not cry. She did not panic. She put her hand flat on the hollow floorboard, and she said very quietly to the dark, and to her father and to herself, "I'm not scared of you." The wind moved through the maple trees outside. The Blue Ridge stood up dark and old against the moon. And Harper Whitfield, 18 years old, $200 to her name, 90 days to come up with 800 more alone in a stone building her father had hidden from her brothers, for a reason she did not yet understand, smiled in the dark, because she had figured out one thing: her brothers were afraid of her, of what she might find, of what was under her feet. And that meant, for the first time in 3 years, Harper had something. Harper had power. She just didn't know it yet. But she was about to. Harper did not sleep again that night. She sat in the moonlight with her hand on the hollow floorboard, and she did not move. And she did not breathe louder than she had to. The cold came up through the floor and into her bones, and she let it. Because the cold was a fact. And right now, she needed facts. Fact 1. Her brothers were afraid of her. Fact 2. There was something under this floor. Fact 3. Whatever it was, her father had wanted her to find it. Fact 4. She had 90 days, 89 days now, almost. The night moved past her in pieces. An owl somewhere in the maples. A truck on the highway 2 miles off. Once around 3 a.m., a car came down Hollow Creek Lane real slow and slowed even more in front of the farmhouse, and then kept going. She did not look out the window, because if it was Holden coming back, or Garrett, or whatever men her brothers might have hired, she did not want them to see her face in the window. She wanted them to think she was sleeping, or scared, or gone. Let them think it. The first gray of morning came through the dirty glass like dishwater leaking in. Harper stood up. Her knees cracked. Her back ached. Her left arm had gone to sleep against her body, and now it tingled when the blood came back in. She walked in a slow circle around the upstairs room because she had to wake up her legs. The hollow floorboard sat under her sofa. She wanted to pry it up. God, she wanted to pry it up. But there was a rusted tire iron in the corner of the room. And there was a brother named Holden who had offered her $50,000 at midnight. And there was a power line that had been cut, which meant if she pried up that board now and found whatever was under it, right now, tired, scared, alone, with no lights, with nobody knowing where she was, with two men, 200 feet across the maples, who had already proved they were willing to do illegal things in the middle of the night. She might not get to keep what she found. Harper had learned a thing in 3 years of group homes. When somebody wants you to act fast, you go slow. When somebody wants you to be alone, you find people. When somebody wants you to be scared, you eat breakfast. She did not have breakfast. She had half a granola bar from Ms. Patterson and the last sip of bottled water. She ate the granola bar standing at the window, watching the sun come up behind the Blue Ridge. The light moved across the mountains in slow stripes, pink, then gold, then white. She had forgotten this, the way light worked here. In Asheville, the light was just light. Here, the light was a thing the mountains did to the sky. She crammed the granola wrapper in her pocket because she would not litter in her own house. Her own house. She tried the words out in her head. My house. They didn't fit yet. She walked down the creaky stairs. She unlocked the side door. She looked out. Nothing. Just the gravel, the weeds, the maple trees. The back of the big white farmhouse asleep in the morning, smug as a cat. She stepped out. She walked around to the electrical meter. The master switch had been thrown to the off position. Just thrown. Not cut. Not broken. Just off. Petty. So petty. She wanted to laugh, because 41-year-old Garrett Whitfield in his quarter-zip pullover, with his black Labrador, with his BMW, had walked across the dewy grass in the middle of the night to flip a switch on his little sister. A grown man, trying to scare a girl by turning off a light. Harper flipped the switch back to on. A small green LED winked at her. "Hi, electricity," she said out loud. She felt insane. She felt fine. She walked back inside and tested the light upstairs. The single bare bulb in the apartment ceiling buzzed and came on yellow. She had lights. She had a house. She had a hollow floorboard with something under it. Now she needed a town. The walk into Cedar Falls took 40 minutes. She had thought about being seen. She had thought about her brothers in their 2 cars on Hollow Creek Lane. So she cut through the field behind the Hartley place and came out behind the Methodist church and walked into town from the east side. Nobody she passed recognized her. She had been 15 the last time these people saw her. She was 18 now, and 3 years in a group home had thinned her face and darkened the circles under her eyes and dyed her father's stubbornness into her jaw. She looked like a stranger. That was useful. She stopped on the sidewalk in front of Jenkins Hardware. The window display had not changed since she was a child. A push mower, a bag of mulch, a hand-painted sign that read, "We fix what the internet can't." Inside, behind the counter, sat a man she had not seen since she was 12 years old. Earl Jenkins. Old now. Older than she remembered. His hair had gone all the way white, and his shoulders had gone narrow inside his denim work shirt. But his eyes were the same, pale blue, quiet. The eyes of a man who had spent 50 years figuring out what people needed before they asked. He looked up when the bell over the door rang. She watched his face. She watched it do nothing for about 3 full seconds. And then she watched it do everything. His mouth opened. His coffee mug stopped halfway to it. He set the mug down very slowly on the counter, as if it were full of nitroglycerin. Lord have mercy. Hi, Mr. Jenkins. Spark plug. She had not heard the name out loud in 3 years. It hit her like a step she didn't see coming. You remember. Of course I remember. Your daddy talked about you every single day of his life. Sit down. Sit down right now. Get out of that doorway. You look like a cold biscuit. She sat. He came around the counter. He moved the way old men move when they have decided to move fast. Carefully. With purpose. As if the body might object, but the mind has already overruled it. He went to the back room and came out with a thermos and 2 mugs and a sleeve of saltines and a jar of peach jam. I do not have proper food. This is what I have. Eat it. Mr. Jenkins. Earl. Stop calling me Mr. You called me Earl when you were 6. Earl. Eat. She ate. The saltines and peach jam were the best thing she had tasted since she could remember. She had to make herself eat slow, because the body knows when it's been hungry for 3 years, even if the mind has gotten polite about it. Earl sat across from her on a 5-gallon paint bucket and watched her eat. Your brothers know you're back. It was not a question. Yes. They been by here? Not yet. They will. I figured. He nodded slowly. He took a long sip of his coffee. He looked out the window at the empty street. They came in here last Tuesday. She froze with a cracker halfway to her mouth. Last Tuesday. Yeah, both of them. Together. Which they have not done in this store in, Lord, 3 years probably. What did they want? They wanted to know if I'd heard from you. She put the cracker down. What did you say? I said I had not heard from you, which was true. And I said if I did hear from you, I would be sure to let them know, which was a lie. And I have been a Methodist for 68 years, and I do not like lying. But there are situations. He took another sip. What situations, Earl? He looked at her over the rim of the mug, his pale blue eyes very steady. Spark plug. I have known your family for 40 years. Your daddy saved my hardware store in 1998 when the bank was about to take it. He loaned me $18,000 on a handshake. No paper, no interest. He came in here with the check on a Tuesday morning and he said, Earl, you've been waking up scared. Stop it. And he handed me the check. And he walked out. And he never once, not one time, in 24 years, asked me about that money. I paid him back. I paid every dollar of it back. But he never asked. Harper's eyes burned. That's the man I knew. That's the man I knew too, which is how I know your brothers are not him. They asked you not to help me. They asked me not to help you, yes. Garrett did the talking. Holden did the staring. They said you were unstable. They said you had problems. They said if you came around town acting confused, I should call them. And if I needed money, they specifically said, and I quote, do not give her credit. Do not loan her anything. Do not even sell her a screwdriver on payments. Yes, they said that. Harper looked at the saltines. Her hand was shaking. They knew I was coming. They knew. They knew about the carriage house. They knew. And they have known for 3 years that my father left it to me. They have known, yes. She stood up. She did not know why. She just stood up. Earl, I need a crowbar. I'll get you a crowbar. And a flashlight. Got it. And, Earl, I have $200 to my name. I will pay you when I... Spark plug. What? Sit down. Sit down. She sat down. Earl went to the back of the store. He came back with a heavy crowbar wrapped in a shop rag, a big Maglite flashlight, a box of AA batteries, a new claw hammer, a package of work gloves, a canvas tool belt, and in his other hand a thermos he had filled from the back room in a paper bag that smelled like a sandwich. He set the pile in front of her. This is on the house, Earl. Spark plug. This is too much. Your daddy gave me $18,000 on a handshake. This is $6 in tools and a chicken salad sandwich. Do not insult me. She did not insult him. She put the tools in her box. She picked up the box. She started to walk out. At the door, she stopped. Earl. Yeah, baby. How many people in this town knew my daddy the way you knew him? He thought about it. His eyes did a thing she would think about later. They got a little wet, but he did not cry. He was not the kind of man who cried in front of an 18-year-old girl carrying a crowbar. More than your brothers want you to find out. She nodded. She walked out into the morning sun. The walk back to the carriage house took 35 minutes. She did not cut through the field this time. She walked right down the middle of Hollow Creek Lane. Let them see her. Let them count the tools. Halfway home, an old blue Buick slowed down beside her. The window came down. Eleanor Hartley sat behind the wheel. Silver hair pinned. Cotton dress. Tan handbag on the passenger seat. The Buick smelled like Aquanet and peppermint and 70 years of clean living. Get in, sweetheart. Ma'am, Get in. I made chicken and dumplings. You are not going to walk past my house carrying a crowbar and not eat my chicken and dumplings. That is not happening. Harper got in. The Buick smelled even better from the inside. The Hartley house sat directly across Hollow Creek Lane from the white farmhouse. Yellow clapboard, black shutters, wraparound porch, a vegetable garden in the side yard with the last fall tomatoes still hanging on the vines. Tomatoes. Harper had not seen a tomato vine since. She did not let herself finish the sentence. Eleanor parked the Buick. She got out. She walked around to Harper's side. She opened the door like Harper was visiting royalty. Then she took Harper's hand and walked her up the porch steps and into the kitchen. The kitchen smelled like everything Harper had been trying not to remember. Butter, pepper, stew and chicken, bay leaf, the faint, sweet smoke of a wood stove that had been lit at 5 a.m., the yellow light of an overhead lamp that had been hanging there since Eisenhower. Eleanor sat her at the kitchen table. She put a bowl in front of her. She filled the bowl. Harper stared at it. Eleanor. Eat. I. Sparkplug. I have known you since you were 8 days old. I held you in this kitchen when your mama brought you home from the hospital. You are not going to look at my chicken and dumplings and not eat it. Eat. Sparkplug. From Eleanor. Harper ate. She did not cry. Not exactly. But water kept showing up in her eyes, and she kept blinking it back and chewing. Eleanor sat across from her with a cup of coffee and watched her eat. She did not push. She did not chatter. She just sat. The way old women sit. With purpose. With patience. With the comfortable certainty of a person who has nowhere else to be. When Harper finished the bowl, Eleanor refilled it without asking. Halfway through the second bowl, Harper found her voice. Mrs. Hartley. Eleanor. Eleanor, did my father ever leave anything with you? The old woman went still, just like she had on the bus. The same stillness. The stillness of a woman hearing something she had been waiting a long time to hear. She got up. She walked into the living room. Harper could hear her opening a drawer, then a closet, then a cabinet door, then nothing. Eleanor came back. She was carrying a Bible, a big one, black leather, worn soft on the corners, the pages gilt-edged in gold that had faded to the color of old straw. She set it on the table next to Harper's bowl. Your daddy gave me this about 4 years ago, about 6 months before he died. He came over one Sunday afternoon and he sat at this very table and he gave me this Bible and he said, Eleanor, hold this for me. One day my Harper will come for it. Don't give it to anybody else. Not the boys, not the lawyer, not the preacher. Nobody. Just Harper. Harper put down her spoon. He gave you this 4 years ago. 4 years and 2 months. I marked the day. November 14th, 2021. Harper had been 13. She had been 13 years old. Her father had already been making plans. Her father had already known. She reached out a hand. It was shaking. She set her fingers on the cover of the Bible. The leather was warm. That was just the kitchen. The kitchen was warm. The leather was warm because the kitchen was warm. Stop being a fool, Harper. Except the leather felt warm, like skin. She opened the Bible. Inside the front cover in her father's handwriting in his slanting black ink. For my spark plug. Read what is underlined. That was all. She turned the pages. Her hands shook so hard the gilt edges blurred. She turned the pages slow at first, then faster. Looking for underlining, she found it. The first underlined verse was in Proverbs. Chapter 11, verse 1. A false balance is abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. Harper read it 3 times. The next underlined verse was in Luke, chapter 8, verse 17. For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad. The next was Ecclesiastes. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. There were 11 underlined verses. She read them all. The 11th one was in Numbers. Chapter 32, verse 23. Be sure your sin will find you out. Harper closed the Bible. She closed her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, Eleanor was watching her. Eleanor. Yes, baby. My father was building a case. Yes, baby. Against my brothers. Yes, baby. You knew. Eleanor did not answer right away. When she did, her voice had gone very soft. I suspected, baby. How long? Eleanor looked at her hands. For 5 years. 5 years. 5 years. Why didn't you? Harper stopped. She did not finish, because she saw Eleanor's hands, the way the old woman was holding her coffee cup. Both hands wrapped around it. White knuckles. The thin skin pulled tight over the bones. The cup not moving. The cup not moving because the hands were shaking too hard to drink from it. Eleanor. My husband. Eleanor. You don't have to. My husband worked for your daddy's company for 30 years. He was the foreman. He knew every project, every bid, every invoice. Harper sat very still. Your daddy, James, he suspected something was wrong, baby, before any of this. He saw the numbers in his own books, and he could not make sense of them. But he was not an accountant. He was a builder. He needed somebody who knew the company from the inside. Somebody who could put a name to what he was seeing. Eleanor's voice was steady but soft. 5 years ago, about a year before your daddy got sick, Walter came home one Tuesday night, white as a sheet. He sat at this table, and he said, Eleanor, I found something at work today. I found something I should not have found, and I am going to have to tell James about it. And then I am going to have to tell the police. Harper could not breathe. He went and told your daddy 2 days later. The two of them sat in your father's office for 3 hours. When Walter came home, he was a different man, quieter, like a man who had finally set down a weight he had been carrying alone. He told me James was going to start gathering the proof. He told me it was going to take time. He told me everything was going to be all right. She paused. 2 weeks after that, Walter was driving home from the job site on Route 19. The brakes on his truck failed. The truck went over the embankment by Cedar Creek Bridge. He died at the scene. Eleanor's eyes were wet. Her mouth was steady. The sheriff said it was a tragic accident. Brakes get old. Trucks get old. Tragic. He was very kind. Sheriff Donald Pickett. Very kind man. He brought me a casserole. Harper's hand was on her own throat. She did not remember putting it there. The truck was a 1997 Ford. Walter had just had the brakes serviced 3 weeks before by a mechanic he had used for 22 years. Eleanor, I never told anyone. Not the sheriff, not the preacher, not the insurance company, not my own daughter, because I had no proof, and because the people I would have been accusing, the people I would have had to point my finger at. Eleanor looked up. Her eyes met Harper's. were the boys who used to come to my back door selling lemonade when they were 7 and 10 years old. The kitchen was so quiet Harper could hear the wood stove ticking. Your brother's baby. I know. I am not saying they killed Walter. I know. I am saying I have been afraid for 5 years. I know. Harper got up. She walked around the table. She put her arms around Eleanor Hartley, and Eleanor Hartley put her face against Harper's shoulder. And the two of them stood like that in the warm kitchen with the wood stove ticking for a long time. Harper got back to the carriage house at 2 in the afternoon. She bolted the door behind her. She climbed the stairs. She set Earl's crowbar and Earl's flashlight and Eleanor's Bible on the floor next to the sofa. She knelt down. She pushed the sofa aside. The hollow floorboard sat there waiting. She wedged the flat end of the crowbar into the crack. She put her weight on it. The wood groaned. She put more weight on it. The wood resisted. She put everything she had on it. The board snapped up with a sound like a small bone. Underneath was a hollow, about 2 feet square, lined with old newspaper from 1962. And in the hollow, wrapped in oilcloth, a green metal ammunition box, heavy, olive, drab, the hinges rusted but solid. 2 latches on the front. Harper lifted it out. It weighed more than she had expected. She set it on the floor. She wiped the dust off the top with her sleeve. There were no markings. She unlatched it. The hinges complained. She lifted the lid. The first thing she saw was money. Stacks of it. $100 bills. Banded with old rubber bands that had gone hard with age. Used bills. Soft from circulation. The kind that smelled like 100 wallets. She did a fast count with her eyes. $40,000, at least. She had never seen $1,000 in cash. Now she was looking at 40. Her hands were shaking again. She moved the money aside. Underneath the money, a cream-colored envelope, heavy paper, her name written on it in her father's handwriting. Spark plug. Underneath that envelope, a second envelope, smaller, thicker, sealed with red wax, stamped with the letter W. She picked up the first envelope. She broke the seal. She unfolded the pages. There were many. 20 at least. She sat down on the dusty floor in the patch of afternoon sunlight, and she read, My dearest Sparkplug, if you are reading this letter, then several things are true at once. You are 18 years old. You are clever enough to have found this box. And I am gone. Harper's hand pressed flat against her chest. I am so sorry, baby girl. I am so sorry I had to go. There is not a single day sitting here writing this that I do not break apart knowing I will not see you grow up. I need you to listen to me now, the way you used to listen when we sat in the tomato garden, and I told you why a tomato grows toward the sun and not toward the ground. I did not abandon you. Your brothers did not abandon you either. I sent you away, and it is the worst thing I have ever done, and it was the only thing I could do. Harper read it twice. I sent you away. She kept reading. 5 years ago, before I was sick, I started noticing things. Small things. Invoices that did not match jobs. Suppliers I had never heard of. a vendor account in Wilmington that was being paid $60,000 a year for materials we did not use. But I was a builder, not an accountant, and I could not be sure of what I was seeing. So I went to Walter Hartley. Walter was the only man in the company I trusted with the whole truth. 2 weeks later, Walter was dead. And I understood then exactly what I was dealing with. I spent the next 2 years putting together proof on my own. Quietly. Carefully. Without telling anyone. By the time I got my diagnosis, I had a name for what I was looking at. It was theft. Slow, careful, professional theft. From inside my own company. By my own sons. I will not lie to you, spark plug. The first time I let myself say it out loud, I went out to the barn and I sat on the floor and I cried like a child. Your brothers are clever. They are clever, and they are patient. They have been moving money for years. They have set up shell corporations in 3 states. They have hidden assets in offshore accounts. They have been waiting for me to die, and I knew that the moment I was gone, they would come for everything. The house, the company, the land, and they would come for you. You were 15 years old, spark plug. You did not yet have the words for what they were. You loved your brothers because they were your brothers, and they would have used that love against you. They would have made themselves your guardians. They would have controlled your trust. They would have controlled your life. And by the time you turned 21, you would have inherited nothing but a checkbook with no money in it and a name with no honor left on it. I could not let that happen. So I made a decision. The hardest decision I have ever made. I let the state take you. I let you go into the system, baby. Because the system, with all its cold, cruel paperwork, was the only place your brothers could not reach you. I gave Robert Cole instructions. He could not contact you until your 18th birthday. He could only give you this codicil. He could only tell you about this carriage house. The rest had to come from you, because I believed with every cell in my body that my spark plug would find her way home. Harper's tears were not crying anymore. They were something else. They were the body doing something it had not been allowed to do for 3 years. She kept reading. I had to make this place look worthless. I let the taxes go unpaid. I did not maintain the building. I had the property lines surveyed and severed from the main parcel 5 years ago, quietly through Robert. I put it in a separate trust. A trust your brothers do not know exists. The cash in this box is yours. I sold a few things quietly. I withdrew it in small amounts so no one would notice. It is enough to give you a start. It is enough to buy you time. It is enough to pay the taxes and feed you for a year. It is yours. No strings. The second envelope, the one with the wax seal, that is something else. The second envelope contains every piece of evidence I gathered in the last 3 years of my life. Wire transfers, invoices, bank statements, the names of the shell companies, the names of the people who helped them, the dates, the amounts. Enough to put your brothers in federal prison for a very long time. And enough to recover every dollar they stole. Spark plug. This is the heaviest thing I have ever asked you to carry. So I am not going to ask you. I'm going to give you a choice. Burn the second envelope. Keep the cash. Walk away. Build a life. Plant tomatoes. Marry a man who is kind. Forget your brothers. Forget Cedar Falls. You have already paid more than your share. You owe this family nothing. Or, open the second envelope, take it to the authorities, and go to war. Not for the money. The money is a bandage. Open it for the people they hurt. Open it for Walter Hartley. Harper stopped reading. She lowered the page. She stared at the wall. Walter Hartley. Her father had known. Her father had known about Walter Hartley. She picked up the page again. I know about Walter's spark plug. I know what they did. I cannot prove it. But I know it the way a farmer knows a storm is coming. If you open the second envelope, you will not just be opening it for yourself. You will be opening it for Eleanor. You will be opening it for every employee they cheated. You will be opening it for the apprentices they fired without cause, and the suppliers they bankrupted, and the families they bled. One path is peace. The other is justice. I am proud of you either way. I love you, Sparkplug. I loved you the day you were born, and I loved you every single day since. And I love you sitting here writing this, knowing my hand will be cold before you read it. Your father, James Whitfield. Harper sat on the floor with her father's letter in her lap, and her hands flat on the floorboards beside her. And she did not move for an hour. The sun moved. The patch of light crawled across the floor and up the wall, and onto the dusty cushion of the sofa. She did not move. She thought about Eleanor Hartley's shaking hands. She thought about Walter Hartley going over the embankment on Route 19. She thought about Earl Jenkins's pale blue eyes and the $18,000 her father had loaned him on a handshake. She thought about Holden's smile last night, the one that did not reach his face. She thought about the dead bird on the windowsill. She thought about the tomato garden. She thought about her father's hands, the way they had been black with garden dirt, the way they had been so warm she had thought he could never be cold. She picked up the small envelope, the one with the wax seal. She did not open it. She just held it. She held it for a long time. And then, slowly, she put it in the inside pocket of her jacket, against her chest, where she could feel it. She stood up. She walked downstairs. She put on the work gloves Earl had given her. She locked the side door. She walked into town. The office of Cole and Associates sat above the Cedar Falls Pharmacy on Main Street. A narrow staircase, a frosted glass door with Cole and Associates Est, 1979 lettered in gold. A small bell that rang when you opened the door. The receptionist was a woman in her 50s with a soft, round face and a beaded eyeglass chain. She looked up. "Can I help you, sweetheart?" "I have an appointment." "You do?" "With Mr. Cole." "What's your name, baby?" "Harper Whitfield." The receptionist looked at her, did not move, did not blink. Then, very quietly, she picked up the phone. She pressed one button. She said, "Robert, she's here." Then she hung up. She stood up. She walked around the desk. She came over to Harper. She took both of Harper's hands in both of her own. "Sweetheart, your daddy was my Sunday school teacher when I was 9 years old. He taught me the parable of the prodigal son, and I cried because I did not understand it. He gave me a peppermint, and he told me one day I would. I have been waiting 26 years to meet you. Welcome home." Harper opened her mouth. She did not know what was going to come out. What came out was, "Thank you." The receptionist squeezed her hands once. The frosted glass door behind her opened. Robert Cole stepped out. He was 70 if he was a day. White hair. Charcoal three-piece suit that had been tailored before Harper was born. Half-moon reading glasses on a silver chain. The kind of face that did not show much because it had spent 40 years deciding what to show on purpose. He looked at Harper. He smiled. It was a small smile. It made her cry. "Miss Whitfield." "Mr. Cole." "Come in, child." She followed him into the office. He shut the door behind her. The room smelled like leather and old paper, and a hint of pipe tobacco that had to be 10 years stale and somehow still alive. He gestured to a chair. She sat. He went behind his desk. He did not sit. Instead, he turned and walked to a tall mahogany filing cabinet against the back wall. He took out a small brass key. He unlocked the bottom drawer. He lifted out a file. It was thick. It was very, very thick. He set it on the desk between them. He looked at her over his half-moon glasses. "Your father and I have been preparing for this meeting for 4 years, 2 months, and 9 days. Harper looked at the file. The label on the side in her father's handwriting said one word: evidence. She reached into the inside pocket of her jacket. She took out the envelope with the red wax seal. She set it on the desk next to the file. The 2 envelopes touched. Robert Cole looked at the 2 envelopes touching. He took off his glasses. He set them on the desk. He looked at her. His eyes were wet. He did not bother to hide it. "Spark plug," he said. She had not told him the name. She had never told anyone in this office the name. He just knew. "Spark plug. What would you like to do?" Harper Whitfield, 18 years old, sat in a leather chair in an attorney's office above a pharmacy in a town she had been thrown out of 3 years before, looked at the man her father had trusted with his life and her future and the proof of her brother's crimes. She thought about peace. She thought about justice. She thought about Eleanor Hartley's hands. She put her own hand on the small envelope. She slid it across the desk. "Open it, Mr. Cole." "Are you certain?" "I am certain. This will not be easy. Nothing has been easy. They will come for you. They already have." He picked up the envelope. He held it for one long moment. Then he broke the seal. The wax cracked like a small, dry bone. He unfolded the pages. He began to read. His face, the face that had spent 40 years deciding what to show on purpose, slowly started to change. Harper watched it. She watched the lawyer's careful neutrality slip. She watched something underneath it come up. Not surprise. Confirmation. Like a man who had suspected the world was on fire. and was now reading the report that said, yes, the world was on fire. And here was the map. He read for a long time. When he set the pages down, his hand was steady. Miss Whitfield. Yes, sir. Your father was a more thorough man than I gave him credit for, and I gave him a great deal of credit. Yes, sir. There is enough here to do what he hoped you might do. Yes, sir. It will take months, maybe longer. There will be investigators. There will be subpoenas. There will be men in dark suits asking you questions in rooms you have never been in. There will be a trial. Your brothers will hire the best lawyers in 3 states. They will say things about you, about your time in the group home, about your mental health. They will try to destroy you. Yes, sir. You understand this. I understand this. Then I have one more thing to ask you. He stood up. He walked around the desk. He stood in front of her. He did something Harper did not expect. He held out his hand, like a man making a deal, like a man asking a woman to be his partner. Will you let me help you spark plug? Harper Whitfield, 18 years old, looked at the 70-year-old lawyer's hand. She thought about her father. She thought about Eleanor. She thought about Earl. She thought about every quiet person in this town who had been waiting 4 years to be allowed to do the right thing. She stood up. She took his hand. Yes, Mr. Cole, I will. The sun was going down over the Blue Ridge when Harper walked home along Hollow Creek Lane. The light was the color of an old penny. The maple trees were burning. Behind her on Main Street, Robert Cole had already picked up the phone. In front of her at the end of Hollow Creek Lane, the white farmhouse was lit up like a Christmas display. Garrett's BMW was in the driveway. Holden's Lexus was beside it, and a third car. A black Suburban she did not recognize. 3 men were standing on the porch. She knew 2 of them. The third one was a stranger. Big. Square. The kind of man you hire when you want a problem to go away. Harper kept walking. She walked straight past the driveway. She did not look at them. She did not have to. She felt them watching. She turned down the gravel path to her carriage house. She unlocked her door. She went inside. She bolted it. Halfway up the stairs in the dark, she stopped. She heard it then, the sound of a window breaking somewhere below her, glass on stone, and then the sound of something heavy, something burning, hitting her floor, smoke. That was the first thing. Smoke and the smell of gasoline and the sound of fire eating air. Harper froze on the dark staircase. Then she moved. She moved the way you move when your body has been waiting your whole life to know how fast it could go. She took the stairs down 2 at a time, 3 at a time. Her hand on the splintered rail. Her boots hitting wood. The flashlight in her jacket pocket banging her ribs. She got to the ground floor. The fire was small, still small. A burst of orange in the corner where the broken window had been. A jagged hole in the glass. A glass bottle on the stone floor. Already cracked. The rag stuffed in the neck still burning. Yellow flames climbing up an old canvas tarp that had been draped over a pile of seed bags. Seed bags. Old seed bags. full of dust and dried grain and 40 years of paper feed sacks. Harper had about 30 seconds, maybe 40, before the whole ground floor went up. She did not panic. She would think about that later, the not panicking. She would think about it for years, about how the body had simply taken over, about how a girl who had cried herself to sleep on a group home cot 100 nights in a row had walked toward a fire instead of away from one. There was a fire extinguisher on the wall. Earl had pointed it out that morning. Spark plug, old red one, bottom of the stairs. Your daddy put it there in 2006. Should still hold. Should still hold. Harper grabbed it. She yanked the pin. She squeezed. White powder. Loud. Cold. A blizzard of dry chemical hitting the flames and the canvas and the broken bottle and the stone floor all at once. The fire fought her. Until it didn't. Until there was just hissing and smoke and the smell of scorched chemical in an old building that had almost died and had not, and Harper standing in the dark with an empty extinguisher in her hands. She did not move. Outside, through the broken window, she heard a car door slam, an engine, tires on gravel, going fast, going away. Then nothing, just her breathing and the wind in the maples. She walked to the side door. She unlocked it. She stepped out into the cold. She looked up at the Blue Ridge Mountains, black against the last copper light. She filled her lungs all the way to the bottom. Then, very calmly, very plainly, without theatrics, she walked to the white farmhouse, across the maple trees, up the slope, to the back door. She did not knock. She rang the doorbell. She rang it again. She rang it 3 more times. The porch light came on. The back door opened. Garrett stood there, in a sweater, holding a tumbler of bourbon, his face arranged into surprise. That was not surprise. Harper, what on earth? Garrett, you all right? You look. Someone threw a Molotov cocktail through my window. What? Someone threw a firebomb through the window of my house, about 4 minutes ago. Oh my God, Harper, are you? Save it. Save what? The performance. Save it. I'm tired. He smiled. The Whitfield family smile. The one that bought time. Sister, you have had a very long day. Come inside. Let's sit down. Holden is in the den. We can talk this out like adults. I am not coming inside. Harper, I'm standing on this porch to tell you, one time, the next thing that happens in your house is not me coming inside. The next thing that happens is federal agents knocking on this door. And I want you to remember that I came over here before they did and gave you a chance. His face changed, just a little, a pixel at a time. A chance for what? A chance to know it was me. She turned around. She walked off the porch. He called after her. Harper. She did not turn. Harper, don't be ridiculous. Come back. She did not turn. Harper, you ungrateful little. She kept walking. She walked across the yard, through the maples, around the side of the carriage house, past the smoke-stained window, to the back door. She locked herself inside. She climbed the stairs. She sat on the dusty sofa. She put her hands flat on her knees, and she let herself shake. The shaking lasted maybe 2 minutes. Then it was over. She got up. She went and got Eleanor. Eleanor came in her cotton dress with a flashlight in one hand and a cordless landline phone in the other, like a woman going to war. Earl came in a Ford F-15. Oh, he had owned for 19 years with a tarp, a sheet of plywood, a battery-operated work light, and a shotgun on the passenger seat that he set very carefully on the floor of the truck before he carried the tarp up to the broken window. Robert Cole came in a charcoal suit with a yellow legal pad, and a man Harper did not know who was introduced to her, only as Agent Mallory. Agent Mallory wore a Navy windbreaker. He shook Harper's hand once firmly. He went straight to the broken window. He took photographs of the glass bottle. He took photographs of the rag. He took photographs of the gasoline residue on the stone. He bagged the bottle. He bagged the rag. He did all of this without saying more than 15 words. When he finally turned to Harper, he said, "Miss Whitfield?" "Yes, sir." "This is now a federal matter." "Yes, sir." "Do not leave Cedar Falls without telling Mr. Cole." "Yes, sir." "Do not open the door to anyone you do not know." "Yes, sir." "And ma'am." "Yes, sir." "You did good." Harper did not know why she cried at that. She just did, a little, in Eleanor's kitchen later that night, where Eleanor had insisted she sleep. Eleanor had set up the guest room, the one that had been Walter's office. The wallpaper was old roses. The bed was a four-poster from 1962. The sheets smelled like lavender and lemon. Harper lay in the bed and looked at the ceiling. She did not think about the fire. She thought about Walter Hartley, about a man who had come home one Tuesday and sat at his kitchen table and told his wife he was going to do the right thing. She thought about what right things cost. She thought, "It is my turn now." And she slept. The next 6 months happened the way a river happens, not in moments, in current. Agent Mallory was a federal investigator with the FBI's white-collar crimes division out of Charlotte. He brought a partner. The partner brought a forensic accountant. The forensic accountant brought 2 more. Robert Cole opened the evidence file her father had built. He matched it to the file Harper had brought from the carriage house. He matched both files to bank records Agent Mallory subpoenaed from 3 banks and 1 offshore account that Robert had been quietly watching for 4 years. The math told a story. The story was $11 million. $11 million that Garrett and Holden Whitfield had funneled out of Whitfield Construction Incorporated between 2018 and 2024 through 6 shell companies in 3 states, routed through a bank in the Caymans owned by a man in Wilmington who had been paying Holden a quiet retainer of $40,000 a year since 2019 to help him with quote-unquote international tax strategy. It was beautiful work. It was beautiful, careful, professional theft, and it was all written down in her father's neat, slanted handwriting, in Robert Cole's careful legal print. In the second set of books that 4 months into the investigation walked into Robert Cole's office in the trembling hands of a woman Harper had never met. The woman was 71 years old. She had silver hair in a tight bun, a neat blue cardigan over a white blouse, sensible black shoes, a small leather satchel held against her chest like a shield. Her name was Marguerite Mercer. She had been the bookkeeper for Whitfield Construction for 36 years. She walked into Robert Cole's office on a Tuesday morning in February, and she set the satchel on his desk. "Mr. Cole, Mrs. Mercer, I kept a second set of books." "You did?" "Starting in 2018, when I first noticed the discrepancies. I kept a parallel ledger, by hand. I locked it in my house. I did not tell anyone." "Mrs. Mercer." "Mr. Whitfield, James. He paid for my granddaughter's heart surgery in 2018. He never asked to be paid back. He never told a soul. I'm here because he is dead, and because I am old, and because I want to die a clean woman." Robert Cole did not speak. He stood up. He walked around the desk. He took Marguerite Mercer's hand in both of his. He said, "Thank you, ma'am." He sat her down. He called Harper. Harper came to the office. She walked into the conference room. Marguerite Mercer stood up. She had the kind of face Harper had seen on women in church basements her whole life. Plain, polite. The face of a woman who had paid her own bills and raised her own children, and held her tongue through 1,000 things that should have been said. The face of a woman who had finally stopped holding her tongue. "Miss Whitfield, Mrs. Mercer, I am very sorry." "For what?" "For not coming forward sooner." Harper looked at this old woman with the trembling hands and the neat cardigan and the ledger of every dollar her brothers had stolen. She thought about all the things you could say. She did not say any of them. She walked across the conference room. She put her arms around Marguerite Mercer. The old woman cried into Harper's shoulder. Harper said very quietly into the silver hair, "You're here now. That is enough." The indictment came down in April. Garrett Whitfield, 41 years old, federal charges, wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, conspiracy. Holden Whitfield, 38 years old, federal charges, wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, conspiracy. Sheriff Donald Pickett, 58 years old, state charges, bribery, obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence. There were 3 other names on the indictment that Harper did not recognize: a banker in Wilmington, a vendor in Asheville, a man in the Cayman Islands who would, Robert Cole told her quietly, probably never see the inside of an American courtroom, but who would now find the rest of his career significantly less comfortable. The arrests were at 6 in the morning. Harper did not watch. She was in Eleanor's kitchen, drinking coffee, watching the sun come up over the Blue Ridge. Eleanor sat across from her in her blue robe. The phone rang. Eleanor answered. Eleanor said, "Thank you, Robert." She hung up. She looked at Harper. She did not say anything. She just nodded. Harper nodded back. Then Eleanor reached across the table and took Harper's hand, the way she had on the bus, the same way. soft and dry and warm. The two of them sat like that, with their hands together, while the sun came up over the mountains that had stood there long before Walter Hartley died, long before James Whitfield got sick, long before two clever brothers had decided their father's daughter was an inconvenience they could afford to throw away. The trial began in September. It ran 8 weeks. Harper testified on the 4th week. She wore a navy dress Eleanor had picked out at the Belk in Asheville, small pearl earrings that had belonged to Eleanor's mother, her hair pulled back in a low, simple knot. She walked into the courtroom. She did not look at her brothers. She looked at the judge. She looked at the jury. She raised her right hand, and she swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor was a woman named Patricia Ortega, 50, sharp. The kind of woman who had spent her whole career being underestimated and who had stopped minding. Patricia Ortega asked Harper to tell the court her name. Harper said it. Patricia Ortega asked Harper to tell the court her age. Harper said it. Patricia Ortega asked Harper to tell the court where she had lived for the past 3 years. Harper said, Cedar Hill Group Home for Girls, Asheville, North Carolina. A small sound went through the courtroom, the kind of sound a room makes when something true has been said in it. Patricia Ortega walked Harper through the story. The day she turned 18, the letter from Robert Cole, the bus to Cedar Falls, the key behind the electrical meter, the hollow floorboard, the ammunition box, the letter, the evidence. Patricia Ortega did not push. Harper did not rush. She answered every question simply. Yes, no, I do not know, I remember. When Patricia Ortega was done, the defense attorney stood up. He was very expensive. You could tell by his shoes. His name was Thompson Reeves, and he had a haircut that cost more than Harper's monthly grocery budget. And he smiled at Harper like she was a witness he was about to take apart. Miss Whitfield. Yes, sir. You were in foster care for 3 years. Yes, sir. Group homes, specifically. Yes, sir. That must have been very difficult. It was. You must have been very angry. Sometimes. At your brothers. Sometimes. You must have wanted revenge. He drew the word out. Venge. Harper looked at him. She did not blink. I wanted a lot of things, Mr. Reeves. Such as, I wanted my mother to be alive. I wanted my father to be alive. I wanted to come home for Thanksgiving when I was 16. I wanted to graduate high school in a normal building with normal kids. I wanted my brothers to call me on my birthday. None of those things happened. The courtroom was very quiet. Miss Whitfield, is it not possible that you fabricated these documents to get back at the brothers who, in your view, abandoned you? No, Mr. Reeves. It is not possible. It is not possible because I did not write those documents. My father wrote them. The bookkeeper wrote them. The bank wrote them. The vendors wrote them. I am a girl with a bus ticket and $200. I do not know how to forge a wire transfer from a Cayman bank. Miss Whitfield, Mr. Reeves, you stand to gain a great deal of money in this case. I do not stand to gain anything in this case. You do not. No, sir. Your father's estate, the construction company, The recovered funds. You will inherit. I will inherit. Yes. That is a great deal of money. It is. What do you intend to do with it? Harper looked at her brothers for the first time that day. Garrett's jaw was set. His face had gone the color of old newspaper. Holden looked at his hands. She looked at the jury. She looked at the judge. She did not raise her voice. Mr. Reeves, with respect, that is between me and my father. A juror in the second row, a woman in her 60s with a small gold cross at her throat, lifted a tissue to her eye. Thompson Reeves had no further questions. Harper stepped down. She walked past the defense table. She did not look at her brothers. She walked out of the courtroom and into the marble hallway, and Eleanor Hartley and Earl Jenkins were waiting for her on a wooden bench by the tall window. Eleanor stood up. Eleanor opened her arms. Harper walked into them. She did not cry. Eleanor did. Earl did a little and pretended he didn't. The verdict came on a Friday. Guilty on all counts for both of them. Garrett Whitfield, 14 years. Federal prison. Holden Whitfield, 10 years. Federal prison. Sheriff Donald Pickett, 6 years. State penitentiary. $11 million. Recovered. Whitfield Construction Incorporated. Placed in receivership pending sale or restructuring. The white farmhouse. The land. The cars. The hot tub on the porch where her mother used to read her bedtime stories. All of it. Hers. Harper signed the paperwork in Robert Cole's office on a Wednesday morning in November, a year and a few weeks after she had stepped off a bus in Cedar Falls with $200 in a cardboard box. Robert Cole watched her sign. When she set the pen down, he removed his half-moon glasses and looked at her over the desk for a long time. Spark plug. Yes, sir. Now what? She smiled. She had been thinking about it for months. Now we start. She did not move into the white farmhouse. She walked through it. Once. With Eleanor. The morning the keys came back to her, she walked through every room. The kitchen where her mother had baked bread. The dining room where they had said grace at every meal. The den where her father had read the paper. The hallway where her childhood height had been pencil marked on the doorframe, and someone in the last 3 years had painted over the marks. She stood in her old bedroom for a long time. It had been turned into a home gym, a treadmill where her bed had been, a flat-screen television where her bookshelf had been. Harper looked at the treadmill. She did not cry. She just turned around and walked out. She put the farmhouse on the market in January. A young family bought it. 3 kids under 10. Husband worked at the hospital in Asheville. Wife was a 3rd-grade teacher. They saved up for the down payment for 9 years. They cried at closing. Harper sold them the house for $50,000 under asking price. Robert Cole raised an eyebrow. She smiled at him. It's the right number, Robert. He did not argue. She kept the land around the carriage house, 1/10 of an acre. Her father's parcel. Her parcel. She kept her father's old pickup truck, which she found in a storage unit in Asheville that Garrett had been paying for under a fake name for 3 years. For reasons Harper still did not fully understand, but suspected had something to do with the simple inability of certain people to throw anything of their father's away. She had the truck towed home. Earl tuned it up. Harper learned to drive it. She drove it down Hollow Creek Lane in March, very slow. With the windows down, with the wind on her face, listening to the same country station her father used to listen to. And she pulled into the gravel drive of her carriage house, and she sat in the cab for a long time. And she said out loud, "I'm home, Daddy." Then she got out and went inside. The carriage house took a year. Earl helped. He charged her nothing. She tried to pay him. He refused. So Harper had a brass plaque made. She screwed it to the door of Jenkins Hardware in May. It read, "This store was saved in 1998 by James Whitfield. The owner remembers. So do we." Earl saw the plaque. Earl cried. He hugged her for 45 seconds in front of the Sunoco, which was the longest hug Earl Jenkins had given anyone since his wife had passed in 2011. Harper learned to plaster. She learned to wire a switch. She learned to lay tile. She refinished the floors herself. The hollow floorboard, the one her father had hidden the ammo box under. She pulled it up. She had it framed. She hung it on the wall over the sofa, with a small placard underneath. That read, simply, "Foundation." Eleanor visited every Sunday for chicken and dumplings. Harper visited Eleanor every Wednesday for Bible study, even though Harper was not entirely sure she believed. And Eleanor was entirely sure she did not have to. Earl came over on Saturdays. He fixed things. He drank coffee. He sat on the porch and looked at the Blue Ridge. Marguerite Mercer came over on Tuesday afternoons. They worked at the kitchen table together. Harper learned to read a balance sheet. Marguerite learned to laugh again. Slowly. 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 Harper built a life. It was a small life. It was the size of 1/10 of an acre, and one stone building and one rusted pickup truck, and 3 old people who had become her family. It was the largest life she had ever known. The Carriage House Foundation was incorporated in June. Harper sat at the conference room table in Robert Cole's office and signed the papers. The mission statement was one sentence: to provide direct financial support, mentorship, and housing to girls aging out of the North Carolina foster care system on the day they turn 18. Eleanor Hartley, Honorary Chairman. Earl Jenkins, Operations and Facilities. Marguerite Mercer, Chief Financial Officer. Robert Cole, Legal Counsel. Harper Whitfield, Founder and Director. Initial endowment, $4,800,000. The remaining recovered funds went to 3 places: a trust for the Hartley family, a trust for Marguerite Mercer's granddaughter's college fund, and a quiet payment made anonymously to every single employee who had ever been wrongfully terminated from Whitfield Construction in the last 6 years. There were 41 of them. Harper got 41 thank you notes. She kept them all in a wooden box on her bookshelf. The first scholarship recipient walked up the gravel drive to the carriage house on a warm afternoon in August. Her name was Riley. She was 16 years old. She was wearing a backpack that had her whole life inside it. Harper watched her come up the drive from the porch where she had been pulling weeds out of a wooden tomato planter. Harper had built the planter herself, out of cedar boards from Earl's store, with nails her father had bought probably in the 1990s. The tomatoes were Brandywine, Same kind her father grew. They were just starting to come in. Harper stood up. She wiped the dirt off her hands on her jeans. "You must be Riley." "Yes, ma'am." "I'm not a ma'am, I'm Harper." "Don't call me ma'am, I'm 20. "Yes, okay. Harper." "You hungry?" "A little." "You scared?" The girl paused on the gravel. Her chin came up. "Yes." Harper smiled. She walked down the porch steps. She stopped in front of the girl who was 16 and was carrying her whole life on her back, and had been told 3 weeks ago that she could come and live in Cedar Falls with a woman she had never met and learn whatever she wanted to learn and be whoever she wanted to be. "Riley." "Yes." "Do you know what scared means?" "Yes, I think so." Scared means you are about to do something important. The girl looked at her. The girl looked at her for a long time. Then the girl slowly set her backpack down on the gravel. She wiped her eye with the back of her hand. Just once. Just quickly. The way you wipe an eye when you do not want anyone to think you are wiping it. Harper pretended not to see. "Come on inside, baby. Eleanor's bringing chicken and dumplings at 6. The girl picked up her backpack. She followed Harper up the porch. She paused at the threshold. She turned. She looked at the gravel drive, the maple trees, the Blue Ridge Mountains standing up against the late afternoon sky. "Harper." "Yeah." "This is yours." "It is." "You. By yourself. You did this." Harper looked at her stone house. She looked at the cedar planter. She looked at the brass key in her own hand. The key was warm. It was always warm. She did not know why anymore. She had stopped asking. "No, baby, not by myself." Riley waited. Harper said, "Come on, I'll show you." She took the girl inside. She showed her the frame floorboard on the wall. She told her the whole story about a man named James Whitfield who had loved a daughter so much he had let her go. About a lawyer named Robert Cole who had waited 4 years to make a phone call. About a hardware store owner named Earl who had loaned his own loneliness to a frightened girl in the shape of a crowbar and a sandwich. About a Bible from Eleanor Hartley. About a bookkeeper named Marguerite Mercer who had walked into a lawyer's office at the age of 71 to put down a satchel she had been carrying for 36 years. About all the small, brave people who had been waiting their whole lives to do the right thing. About how in the end that was the only thing that ever mattered. Not the money, not the house, not the verdict. The people who showed up. The people who said yes. The people who decided that justice was just a fancy word for the simple act of telling the truth to the right person at the right time. When Harper was done, Riley was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "My mama used to say, the Lord doesn't waste a single broken thing." Harper looked at the girl, 16 years old, standing in her kitchen, in her stone house, on her father's land. She thought about it. Then she nodded. "Your mama's right, baby." That night, after the chicken and dumplings, after Eleanor and Earl had gone home, after Riley had been shown to the small guest room Harper had built into the back of the carriage house, with a window that looked out at the tomato planter after the dishes were done, after the lights were out, Harper went outside. She walked across the gravel drive in her socks. She walked through the wet grass. She stood at the edge of the property line, the one her father had quietly severed 5 years before he died, the one he had hidden inside a trust her brothers had not known existed. She looked up at the Blue Ridge. The stars were out. The moon was up over the ridge. The maple trees were dark against the sky. She thought about her father. She thought about the day he had taught her to skip stones at Hollow Creek Bridge, and she had been so bad at it that he had laughed until he had to sit down. She thought about the day she had been 5 years old, and she had asked him why a tomato grew toward the sun. He had thought about it for a long time. Then he had said, "Baby girl, I think a tomato grows toward the sun because the sun is the thing that loves it most. And things grow toward the thing that loves them most." She had not understood at 5. She had not understood at 15. She thought she might understand a little bit now at 20 in a stone house on 1/10 of an acre, with a 16-year-old girl sleeping in her guest room and a foundation in her name and 3 old people who would be at her kitchen table on Sunday. She closed her eyes. She said, very quietly, to her father, to the mountains, to the maple trees, to herself, "They thought they took everything from me, Daddy." She opened her eyes. She smiled. "They forgot the carriage house." She walked back through the wet grass. She stepped up on her porch. She unlocked her door with the old brass key her father had hidden behind the electrical meter on a sunny afternoon 4 years before he died, when he had still been strong, and the world had still been wide, and a girl named Sparkplug was 9 years old and watching tomatoes grow toward the only thing that loved them most. Harper Whitfield went inside. She closed her door. She locked it. She slept. And in the morning, the sun came up over the Blue Ridge gold on the slate roof of the carriage house, gold on the cedar planter, gold on the kitchen window where a 16-year-old girl named Riley stood in a t-shirt that was too big for her holding a coffee mug, looking at the mountains, learning for the first time in her life what it felt like to wake up somewhere safe. The sun came up. It always did. It rose over the mountains the way it had risen over those mountains for 10,000 years. The way it would rise over them long after Harper was gone and Riley was old, and 100 other girls had walked up that gravel drive and put their backpacks down and stayed. The sun came up, and it shone on the place where a father had hidden a daughter, and on the daughter who had come home, and on every small, brave person in a small southern town who had decided in the quiet of their own kitchens, in the quiet of their own hearts, that the truth was worth the wait. The sun came up, and it found her. It always would.